There is a content format spreading across every major video platform right now. You have almost certainly seen it. The thumbnail is always dramatic. A bright red X stamped across some everyday food item. The title always includes a number and a deadline. 17 foods vanishing before July. 9 groceries you need to stock before the crisis hits. The host speaks with absolute certainty. The music swells underneath every sentence. The clock is always ticking towards some unnamed catastrophe. That morning, the United States Department of Agriculture had published official data confirming that egg prices had dropped 44.7% compared to the same period the previous year. Within hours, a video was already circulating with a thumbnail showing a red X over an egg carton. The host explained in breathless detail that egg supplies were collapsing and that another devastating price spike was imminent. The Economic Research Service was, in fact, forecasting a further 29.4% price decline through the rest of 2026. That inconvenient fact did not appear anywhere in the video. The video crossed 1 million views. The thumbnail stayed up. The comments filled with people announcing they were panic buying immediately. This is where we need to start. Not with the groceries themselves, but with the machine producing this content and the incentive structure keeping it alive. The format has a rigid template. Confident narration, a countdown structure, a specific calendar deadline, and a thumbnail engineered to trigger anxiety before a single second of video plays. Channels using this template consistently generate hundreds of thousands of views per video. A handful have crossed the million-view threshold repeatedly. In nearly every case, the underlying claim is false, outdated, or a deliberate misrepresentation of real data pointing in the opposite direction. Nobody goes back to check after the fact. The foods do not disappear. The channel publishes its next list. The cycle begins again with a new food and a new deadline. Understanding why this matters requires separating two distinct things. First, there is the media phenomenon. Why this content exists, how it spreads, and why it keeps working on audiences. Second, there is the reality of the actual food supply, which is more nuanced and in some cases genuinely alarming, just not in the ways these videos describe or in the foods they choose to highlight. Let us take the egg example apart completely because it is the cleanest illustration of how the misinformation machine works. Highly pathogenic avian influenza hit U.S. poultry operations in the first quarter of 2026. That is a real event. The USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service confirmed that approximately 15.2 million birds were removed from the laying flock as a result. If you hear that number in isolation, without surrounding context, it sounds catastrophic. It is designed to sound catastrophic. That is the entire editorial choice being made. Here is the context that never appears in the thumbnail. During the same period in 2025, over 31 million birds were lost to the same disease. The 2026 outbreak is roughly half the scale of the prior year. American farms were producing 8.36 billion eggs per month by February 2026, a 5% increase compared to the same month a year earlier. The national average retail price had fallen to $2.50 per dozen, down 57% from the near-record high of $5.89. Official government forecasts pointed toward a further 29% decline through the remainder of the year. That is not a crisis, that is a recovery. But recovery does not get clicks. Recovery does not have an urgent countdown attached to it. Recovery does not make a compelling thumbnail with a red X and a calendar date. The emotional architecture of that content format requires perpetual catastrophe. So perpetual catastrophe is what gets delivered regardless of what the data shows. The same inversion applies to olive oil. The drought that struck Spain in 2022 and 2023 was a genuine agricultural disaster. Spanish production fell by approximately 39% in the 2022-2023 crop year. That was real, documented, and economically significant. The disappearing foods genre seized on that crisis and has been citing it ever since, carefully omitting any mention of what happened next. By the 2024-2025 harvest season, Spain produced 1.419 million tons of olive oil. That represents a 66% increase year over year. The International Olive Council's January 2026 report estimated global production at 3.44 million tons for the current season. That figure sits about 4% below the prior year, representing a strong and continued recovery. still well above the crisis-level output of 2.59 million tons recorded in 2023-2024. Consumer prices for olive oil in the European Union fell 23% throughout 2025. In Spain specifically, prices dropped 38.9%. Olive oil is not disappearing. Olive oil is recovering. The content still citing the Spanish drought as a present-day emergency is operating from a script that is at least 2 years out of date. The audience watching that content has no way to know this unless they independently look up the International Olive Council's current production reports, which the video gives them no reason to do. If this kind of verified, source-based content is useful to you, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Rice deserves its own dedicated section because the reversal there is perhaps the most dramatic of all. India suspended non-basmati white rice exports in mid-2023. That policy decision was real, and it did temporarily disrupt global supply chains and trading relationships. Thai benchmark prices climbed over 20% in response. For a period, this represented a legitimate supply concern worth monitoring. Disappearing Foods content is still citing that export ban as though it is in effect right now, in the present tense, as an active threat to your grocery access. India lifted the export restrictions in late 2024. By October 2025, global rice prices had dropped 35% in a single year. COFACE, the International Credit Insurance Group, released forecasts projecting continued price declines through the end of 2025 and price stabilization in 2026 at levels the market has not seen in over a decade. There is no rice shortage. Global rice markets are oversupplied. The ban that supposedly caused the crisis no longer exists, and yet the content citing that ban continues to generate views. Sugar, peanut butter, and pasta complete this section. World sugar prices have dropped to around 14 cents per pound, roughly half the level from 1 year earlier. The U.S. sugar program is now facing potential forfeitures because domestic supply is exceeding demand. That is a surplus situation, not a shortage. The 2025 American peanut crop set a record high at 7.4 billion pounds, 15% above the prior year, with Georgia and North Carolina both breaking their respective state production records. Pasta supply is operating normally, and the wheat shortage narrative that circulated through 2022 and 2023 never materialized into a lasting structural deficit. Broad food inflation has cooled significantly from its 2022 peak, a fact confirmed by Consumer Price Index data across multiple reporting periods. So what is the consistent pattern here? In every case, these videos locate a real crisis from the past, often 12 to 36 months ago, and present it as an active, worsening, present-day emergency. They omit the recovery data. They ignore the updated forecasts. They keep citing the peak crisis numbers because those numbers produce the emotional response the format requires. Anxiety drives engagement. Urgency generates clicks. And there is no algorithmic penalty on any major platform for being factually wrong after the fact. This matters beyond intellectual frustration with bad media. The practical consequence of sustained misinformation inside the prepper and food storage community is misallocated spending. Money that should fund proper long-term emergency preparedness, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, food-grade storage containers, temperature-controlled pantry space, and planned nutritional variety gets redirected into panic purchases of retail packaged items that will be inedible within 18 months. Emergency preparedness and panic buying are not the same activity. One follows a plan built on accurate data. The other follows a thumbnail. FEMA's emergency preparedness guidelines recommend a minimum 2-week supply of food and water built around verified shelf-stable staples. The serious food storage community has understood this framework for decades. The disappearing foods genre ignores it entirely because preparation is a calm, methodical process, and calm, methodical processes do not generate viral content. With that context established, let us turn to what actually deserves your attention right now. 4 primary food categories are under genuine, documented, sourced pressure. These are not recycled 2022 crisis narratives with new thumbnails. These are current structural problems with real data behind them and practical storage solutions worth understanding in detail. Beef. A structural problem. Measured in decades. The USDA's Cattle Inventory Report, published January 30, 2026, recorded the total U.S. cattle herd at 86.2 million head. That is the smallest herd since 1951. The 2025 calf crop came in at 32.9 million head, the lowest count since 1941. ground beef reached a record $6.67 per pound in December 2025. That represents a 20.5% increase year over year and a staggering 72% increase since 2020. This is not a temporary disruption caused by a single bad season. 8 consecutive years of drought across the Great Plains, including Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, have steadily reduced grazing capacity across the most productive cattle regions in the country. High interest rates during that same extended period made it financially unsustainable for ranchers to hold breeding stock through dry seasons, pushing earlier and more aggressive herd liquidation. The rebuilding cycle for cattle is inherently slow due to the biology of the animal. Even under the most optimistic scenario, where every female calf born in 2026 were retained for breeding purposes, meaningful supply recovery would not arrive before 2028 at the earliest. This problem has been compounding for nearly a decade. It will not resolve in a single growing season. How do you store beef for the long term? The method determines the outcome entirely. Ground beef vacuum sealed and frozen at 0 degrees Fahrenheit maintains quality for approximately 4 months and remains technically safe for consumption indefinitely beyond that point. Pressure canned beef, processed following USDA validated procedures in properly sterilized jars, achieves a 5-year shelf life at storage temperatures between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Freeze-dried beef sealed in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers is rated for 25 years. That last format is what serious long-term preppers use consistently, and it is the foundation upon which brands like Mountain House have built their entire product lines. Most households freeze beef in its original retail store packaging and lose a significant portion to freezer burn within 90 days. The container and the method matter as much as the volume being stored. Enjoying the data-driven breakdown? Like this video, leave a comment with what's in your pantry right now, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Honey. The crisis nobody is talking about. Between June 2024 and March 2025, U.S. commercial beekeepers lost an average of 62% of their managed colonies. That figure translates to approximately 1.6 million colonies destroyed in under a year. This is the worst recorded colony die-off in American beekeeping history, surpassing even the original colony collapse disorder events that first alarmed the scientific and agricultural communities in 2007. The USDA Agricultural Research Service has identified the primary driver with specificity. Varroa mites, a long-standing and well-documented parasite in managed honeybee hives, have developed widespread genetic resistance to amitraz, which has been the primary chemical control available to commercial beekeepers for several decades. Resistant mites are simultaneously vectoring multiple viruses, including deformed wing virus, which colonies cannot survive at high infection rates. The combination of chemically resistant parasites and accelerated viral transmission has overwhelmed existing treatment frameworks across the country. Total economic impact of the 2024-2025 die-off exceeded $600 million by industry estimates. Domestic honey production capacity has been structurally damaged in ways that will require multiple years of rebuilding even under favorable conditions. Storage for honey requires almost no specialized knowledge or equipment. Use a glass container with an airtight seal and keep it completely away from moisture. That is essentially the complete instruction set for indefinite preservation. Honey recovered from Egyptian tombs over 3,000 years old has been found in consumable condition by researchers. The only realistic failure mode is moisture infiltration, which triggers fermentation and renders the honey alcoholic. There is no other practical ceiling on honey's shelf life under proper conditions. If your stored honey crystallizes over time, gentle warming restores the liquid texture completely. There is no scenario in which honey properly stored expires under normal household conditions. Coffee. Partially real, precisely defined. Arabica futures hit $4.41 per pound in February 2025, the highest price recorded in 47 years. 2 simultaneous and compounding supply disruptions drove that figure to historic levels. Brazil experienced its worst drought in 70 years, producing approximately a 20% drop in output. Vietnam, the world's second-largest coffee producer, saw a separate and independent 20% production decline in the same period. Brazil has historically served as the stabilizing counterweight in global coffee markets. When Brazilian output collapsed simultaneously with Vietnamese shortfalls, the price response was immediate and severe. The situation was further complicated by a 50% U.S. tariff on Brazilian coffee imports implemented starting August 6, 2025. Brazilian shipments to the United States dropped 46% in direct response to that tariff. The medium-term outlook offers some measured relief. Brazil's 2026-2027 harvest is currently forecast at a record 66 to 76 million bags, which should ease prices significantly once that supply reaches global markets. But the 47-year price high is a documented current reality, not a recycled past tense narrative being repackaged with a new deadline. Storage protocol for coffee depends entirely on the form of the product. Roasted beans in their original valve-sealed bags maintain acceptable flavor for 3 to 4 weeks after opening. Vacuum-sealed and frozen, roasted coffee can maintain quality for approximately 6 months. Green, unroasted beans stored in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers can last up to 15 years without significant quality loss. Freeze-dried instant coffee held in sealed containers falls in the 20 to 25-year range for palatability. If you are building a genuine long-term coffee stockpile for serious preparedness purposes, the most practical approach is buying green beans and investing in a small home roasting unit. The roasted product that most people purchase and consume daily has the shortest shelf life of any coffee storage format that exists. This is a case where the form of the product matters enormously to how long it will actually remain usable. Canned tuna, a quieter but real structural shift. The South Pacific albacore fishery supplies the majority of canned white tuna sold in American grocery markets. The Marine Stewardship Council and the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission have both issued formal statements describing a sustainability crisis developing in that fishery, and the timeline for resolution is not short. Beginning in 2026, MSC certification requires that member fisheries adopt a formal, documented management procedure. A regulatory standard that several major suppliers have not yet successfully implemented. The practical consequence is already visible in supply chains. The Fiji-based PAFCO cannery has reported that available supply has dropped from a needed 23,000 metric tons to 16,500 metric tons, a reduction of nearly 30%. This is not a one-quarter supply disruption that will self-correct. It is a structural shift in fishery access driven by sustainability governance and regulatory timelines, neither of which move quickly under any circumstances. On the storage side, canned tuna is one of the most shelf-stable protein sources available to any emergency preparedness pantry. Properly sealed commercial cans stored below 75 degrees Fahrenheit remain palatable and safe for 3 to 5 years beyond the printed best by date. FDA food safety guidance notes that commercial seam integrity preserves canned proteins for significantly longer when storage conditions remain consistently stable. The primary enemy of canned tuna longevity is not the passage of time, it is heat exposure. Garages that reach 90 degrees or above during summer months degrade canned goods at a dramatically accelerated rate compared to pantry storage at stable room temperature. Where you store it matters more than when you bought it. 3 down, 1 to go. If you want more content like this, hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and means a lot. Chocolate and cocoa. The long-term squeeze. Global cocoa prices hit multi-decade highs in 2024 and continued into 2025. The driver is not a manufactured crisis or an outdated data point. It is structural and ongoing. West Africa produces roughly 70% of the world's cocoa supply, with Ghana and Ivory Coast as the 2 dominant producing nations. Both countries have faced compounding pressures simultaneously. Aging tree stock that has never been systematically replaced, reduced rainfall linked to shifting regional climate patterns, and the ongoing spread of cocoa swollen shoot virus, a disease that kills cocoa trees and for which replanting takes 3 to 5 full years to produce any meaningful yield recovery. The International Cocoa Organization reported a documented global supply deficit in the 2023-2024 crop year. Prices for cocoa beans climbed above $10,000 per metric ton in early 2024, a level not seen since the late 1970s. Major chocolate manufacturers began quietly shrinking product sizes and shifting their formulations to reduce cocoa content without announcing the changes. Premium dark chocolate, which requires higher cocoa percentages, has seen the sharpest retail price increases of any chocolate category. This is not a short-term market correction. Rebuilding aging cocoa tree infrastructure across multiple West African nations takes years under the best coordinated circumstances. Disease management at scale requires regional, governmental, and agricultural intervention. Climate adaptation in West African cocoa farming is a multi-decade undertaking. Cocoa belongs in the category of genuinely pressured foods, not because it will vanish from shelves abruptly, but because the price trajectory is unlikely to reverse in any meaningful time frame. Cocoa powder stored in an airtight container at cool, stable temperatures maintains quality for 2 to 5 years. Dark chocolate bars kept consistently below 70 degrees Fahrenheit and away from humidity can hold for 2 years or more without significant quality loss. For long-term preparedness purposes, sealed cocoa powder is the more practical and space-efficient storage format compared to chocolate bars. Citrus and juice oranges, Florida's structural collapse. Florida orange production has fallen to levels not seen since the 1930s. The primary cause is citrus greening disease, scientifically known as huanglongbing, spread by the Asian citrus psyllid insect. There is no cure currently available. Infected trees produce progressively less fruit. The fruit they do produce is bitter and commercially unusable, and the trees eventually die regardless of management intervention. Florida's orange production has declined by approximately 90% since its peak production years in the 1990s. The 2024-2025 Florida orange crop came in at roughly 15 million boxes. In the mid-1990s, Florida was producing over 240 million boxes in a single season. Brazil has absorbed a large portion of the resulting supply gap and now dominates global orange juice concentrate markets. The tariff environment affecting Brazilian agricultural imports therefore has a direct and underreported secondary impact on orange juice prices. A connection that most food commentary in this space misses completely. This matters directly to emergency preparedness planning because vitamin C is a genuine long-term dietary concern in any extended stored food scenario. Orange juice is not a viable long-term storage item in any practical sense. Freeze-dried fruit, vitamin C supplements in sealed containers, and shelf-stable citrus products are far more practical alternatives for serious pantry building. Rose hips are among the highest natural sources of vitamin C available and store exceptionally well in dried form over long periods. Salt, the overlooked foundation of any serious pantry. Salt receives almost no attention in food storage content across any platform. It deserves significant attention. Salt has no meaningful expiration date when stored in dry conditions. It preserves other foods. It is a foundational cooking ingredient across virtually every cuisine and preparation method. It is inexpensive, compact, and chemically stable indefinitely. Pure sodium chloride, plain non-iodized table salt, stored in an airtight container will last without any degradation under any reasonable storage conditions. Iodized salt has a shorter effective period because the iodine compound added to it can break down gradually over extended time, reducing the iodine content, though not making the salt unsafe or otherwise unusable. For genuine long-term storage purposes, non-iodized salt in sealed containers is the appropriate choice, with iodine supplemented through other dietary sources as part of a complete nutritional plan. Salt also represents one of the clearest examples of the gap between proper preparedness thinking and panic buying behavior. Nobody is producing 17 foods disappearing before June videos about salt. It does not generate anxiety. It does not produce clicks or dramatic thumbnails. But it is more practically useful in a genuine long-term food storage scenario than almost any item that appears on a clickbait countdown list, because it extends the palatability and safety of nearly everything else you store. Dry beans and legumes. Undervalued, underutilized, and exceptional. Dry beans, black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, lentils, chickpeas, and their relatives represent one of the most cost-effective and nutritionally complete foods available for long-term storage. They are high in protein, high in dietary fiber, calorie-dense relative to their storage weight, and they complement grain-based staples nutritionally in ways that make the combination more complete than either alone. Stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, dry beans can maintain nutritional quality and palatability for 25 to 30 years. In sealed food-grade containers without oxygen absorbers, most varieties hold well for 8 to 10 years. There are no meaningful supply pressures on domestic dry bean production at present. The 2025 U.S. dry bean crop came in near historical average levels across growing regions. Lentil production from Canada, the world's largest lentil exporter, also remained stable through the 2024-2025 growing season without significant disruption. The price per calorie is extremely low. The shelf life under proper conditions is exceptional. The nutritional profile is strong enough to anchor a complete long-term food storage plan. Dry beans do not appear in Disappearing Foods content because there is genuinely nothing alarming to say about them right now. But from a practical preparedness standpoint, they may be the single most efficient use of available food storage budget. A 50-pound bag of pinto beans properly sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers costs a fraction of what the same caloric equivalent would cost in commercially packaged freeze-dried retail products. Almost at the end. If this helped you think more clearly about what's real versus what's designed to scare you, hit subscribe and share this with someone who needs it. The platform problem is not going away. The ecosystem producing Disappearing Foods content is not malfunctioning. It is functioning exactly as designed by the platform incentive structure. Video platforms compensate content creators based on view counts and engagement metrics. Anxiety reliably generates engagement. Urgency reliably generates clicks. A video framing a genuine recovery as an ongoing catastrophe will consistently outperform a video explaining clearly what the sourced data actually shows, because one triggers an emotional response and the other requires analytical processing. There is no verification mechanism built into the revenue model at any scale. A creator who publishes inaccurate content faces no financial penalty if the inaccuracy is not immediately obvious to viewers at the moment of consumption. A creator who is factually wrong about egg prices in January can publish a new alarmist list about disappearing pasta in February without any accountability attached to the January error. The audience has already moved to the next thumbnail. The comment section from January is buried. The host of that egg video was not necessarily lying with intent. He was working within a content format that structurally does not require verification before publication. The script was written before the USDA data was released. The thumbnail was designed before anyone on that production team checked the current numbers. The platform rewarded him with 1 million views, regardless of the factual accuracy of a single claim. That structural incentive problem does not have an easy solution from the outside. What it does mean is that the audience, the preparedness community, and anyone else making household purchasing decisions based on food security content needs to develop a consistent habit of checking the underlying source data independently before spending a dollar. When a video cites an active supply crisis, look up the current USDA production and inventory reports directly. When a video cites a dramatic price spike, check the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI data for the relevant food category. When a video cites an export ban or trade restriction, verify through a primary source whether that restriction is still in effect. These verification checks take less time to complete than watching the full video that prompted the question. What belongs in your pantry? Right now. A clear summary, based on current sourced data. Here is a straightforward and honest summary of what actually warrants your attention versus what does not. Eggs, rice, pasta, sugar, peanut butter, and olive oil are all in active recovery or stable supply. The crisis content still citing these items as active emergencies is working from outdated data. Beef is under genuine structural pressure and will remain so through at least 2028 based on current herd rebuilding timelines. Honey faces a documented production capacity problem tied to colony collapse that will take multiple years to repair even under favorable conditions. Coffee prices are at multi-decade highs, with near-term relief forecast from Brazil's upcoming harvest, but no guarantee of a complete reversal. Canned tuna faces a fishery access shift that is structural and regulatory in nature, not a temporary seasonal disruption. Additionally, cocoa and chocolate face a genuine long-term supply squeeze driven by compounding West African production challenges that have no quick resolution. Florida citrus has collapsed structurally due to disease, affecting orange juice markets in ways that intersect with current tariff policy. And dry beans, salt, and legumes remain dramatically underpriced, consistently overlooked, and exceptionally well-suited for long-term food storage, despite receiving almost no coverage from the content format that dominates this space. Proper emergency preparedness is not about reacting to whichever food category appeared in last week's most viewed thumbnail. It is about building a structured, nutritionally complete, correctly stored supply that will actually be edible and useful when you genuinely need it. That means mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for grains and legumes stored for the long term. It means pressure canning or freeze drying for protein sources. It means temperature-controlled storage, Because a garage that reaches summer heat consistently destroys long-term food stores faster than almost any other single factor. It means tracking real supply data from primary government and industry sources rather than from a video whose thumbnail was finalized before anyone on the production team verified a single statistic. The red X on the egg carton got 1 million views on the same morning the USDA published data showing a 44.7% price drop. That gap between what generates attention and engagement and what is factually true and verifiable is the entire problem distilled into a single example. Your pantry deserves to be built on information from the second category. The data is publicly available. The primary sources are free to access. The verification takes minutes rather than hours. Use them consistently, and your preparedness spending will reflect actual risk rather than manufactured urgency. That's the full breakdown. If this helped you cut through the noise, please like, comment with what you're actually storing right now, and subscribe. Your support makes this kind of research possible.